I was out to dinner the other night at a wonderful restaurant, and my date got up halfway through and left. And I was like, "Whoa, where are you going?" And she was like, "You won't stop looking at Gen 5 Uber's usage statistics." And I was like, "Sweetheart, can you believe that Kyurem-White was not used a single time in the last Uber's Premier League?" And then she was like, "Huh, okay, maybe you have a point." And then she sat back down, and everything was wonderful. Anyway, I was looking for a Kyurem-White replay to put on the screen, and I could not find one, and so I came to this usage slash replay thread from the last Uber's Premier League. I figured, oh, I know Kyurem-White is not really a part of the metagame. I know it's not really doing anything special. Because, yeah, okay, it hits really hard, and it's got a good speed stat and everything, but a lot of things hit really hard, and its hazard weakness is so bad, and its defensive typing doesn't really give it any super useful resist. Like, yeah, it does cool things, but nothing that can't be replicated elsewhere, more or less, And as for the other subject of this video, I had, no delulus about. I know Reshiram never gets used because it is terrible. But yeah, I was surprised to see Kyurem-White not get even a single bit of use, while Lilligant did. I mean, okay, I get it. Yeah, Lilligant has broken Gen 5 sleep, and it's outspeeding everything in Sun and all that. But still, man, I wanted to see some Kyurem-White Draco action. I'm nostalgic for when Black and White 2 first came out, around the time of the dissolution of Franco's Spain. And I remember when everyone was freaking out, oh my god, how do you counter this thing? You gotta use Arceus Steel and Specially Defensive Jirachi, and those aren't safe from like Earth Power and Focus Blast and Fusion Flare and Sun. Oh god, it's gonna be terrifying. You gotta use like Arceus Rock and Sand and Win the Weather War, all this stuff. And now it doesn't even get used. So I want to see Kyurem-White, just destroy stuff for selfish purposes, obviously. But the Gen 5 OU metagame is also in a weird place right now. And the teams you see on the screen right now, they're not very weird. But then you look at something like this, for example, with this Blissey Hailstall. It's not even a new thing, but Blissey is getting used nonstop. There's a Blissey team. Now, Dice versus Dark Evian, some cursed stuff was going to happen because those two guys go absolutely crazy in the team builder. But it's not just them. They are not just outliers. Blissey is being used a lot. Blissey's been experimented with for quite a while now, and to great success. I mean, these teams look insane. And that's what I mean by Gen 5 OU being in a weird place. We're seeing a lot of offbeat experimentation that doesn't just fall into sand and hyper offense and rain and like gimmicky Sun stuff. Now, I mean, it is kind of becoming its own categorization of Blissey stall, but there's a lot of variety to it, so I don't mind it. I think it's pretty cool even. So with the metagame being in this weird place, as we see things like Bronzong popping up to try and slow down Cloyster, and generally trying to outstall these hyper offense pokes, because hyper offense pokes are fast and strong enough to rip through the balance stuff, but maybe not necessarily to go through the dedicated stall stuff. When the dedicated stall stuff obviously doesn't match up as well against balance, but it's sorry, I got a text from a friend who. Oh, yeah, she's fine, but we had a mild health scare earlier, but everything is okay. And her girlfriend is with her there, so rest assured that she is well supported. Just like Terrakion is on this team of Brewers. I just looked at Terrakion. I mean, it is well supported. It's got U-turn, it's got Volt Turn, bringing it in to hit the field safely. But yeah, this is an example of a more normal team. And anyway, I have advocated for Kyurem-White and maybe Reshiram. Actually, it was just Kyurem-White because we have Kyurem Black, right? But now I might even advocate for Reshiram. And before it was just like, oh, let Gen 5 OU burn and unleash destruction everywhere, all this cool stuff. Oh, we're seeing more Hail too, because that Hail Blissey thing, that was one example. But we've got a genuine Abomasnow use. Sadly, no Kyurem. But maybe we would with Kyurem-White, huh? Well, we're not seeing Kyurem Black either, or base Kyurem. But obviously Kyurem-White is a different beast. The same animal, but a different beast. So the idea now is not as, set Gen 5 OU on fire. I hate this. I want it to be destroyed. No, I am genuinely kind of curious. Because I remember when Doug Trio was running around in Gen 7 OU, I think it was pre Ultra Sun and Moon, and everyone was complaining about the metagame. And some people were pointing out, like, hey, if you dropped Zekrom into this tier right now, it would not be broke. It would be like a top 20 Pokemon. That kind of got me thinking about, the Ubers that we have as the generations go on, where we have those Ubers that, because in earlier generations, like, every Uber is like, do not drop this into OU. But as it goes on, you kind of start wondering, hey, would this really be that bad? Now, I think Zekrom would be too much for Gen 7 OU, probably. Well, probably, man. I mean, that base 90 speed stat, I mean, it probably would, obviously, but this was in the Doug Trio metagame after all that was being thrown around. But it got me thinking about Kyurem-White and Reshiram, because a lot of the reasons Kyurem-White and Reshiram don't get used in Gen 5 Ubers are very applicable to Gen 5 OU. Now, obviously, Gen 5 Ubers is a million times faster and stronger, but at the same time, I mean, let's look at it. Like, here's a game with Kyurem Black, and we're not going to analyze it or anything, but Kyurem Black, as strong as it is, that's kind of the argument for Kyurem-White, is that, yes, Kyurem-White does hit harder because it has Draco Meteor, which is stronger than Outrage, off of its equivalent special attack to Kyurem Black's attack, and it doesn't lock it. It's stronger and it doesn't lock it in, right? And it has actual Ice Stab, so it has Ice Beam, which, rips through everything. Okay, yeah, fair enough. But the reason I'm wondering, okay, yes, it's going to be absolutely stupid to counter. No disagreements there. But does that make it broken? I mean, after all, we have Hydreigon in the tier. And no, I'm not saying Hydreigon is, better than Kyurem-White or something like that. But at the same time, we're going to start looking at the traits of Kyurem-White and Reshiram and saying, you know what, it's not all about, doing all this damage. It's about the fact that they are going to struggle to hit the field, because Gen 5 OU does outspeed and hit Kyurem-White and Reshiram for super effective damage at every corner, and they're bulky, but they're not that bulky, mostly because they are so vulnerable to the hazards that are absolutely everywhere. And if I thought this before, I especially think it now that Blissey is popping up and seeing regular usage for the first time since Black and White 1. This is around the time that the Soviets were chased out of Czechoslovakia. So, yeah, the thing is, I look at the teams being used in Gen 5 OU, and when you think, what's the worst thing, they could face, it's usually something that is already in OU, and if you, dropped Kyurem-White or Reshiram into it, I don't know. I mean, okay, I fully accept the fact that I could be completely wrong, That's why I would like to see it tested, that's all. And I have no, great stake in it one way or the other. This is just a kooky idea I had. But, I mean, look, the weaknesses they have are so bad. Kyurem-White is weak to Dragon, obviously, and it's also weak to Rock and Fighting and Steel and... Am I forgetting anything? Probably. But, those are very, 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 very common ones, and everything that's hitting it for that super effective damage is usually doing so first. And, I mean, the one exception is, Ferrothorn or... Bronzong's Gyro. Well, Bronzong doesn't really run Gyro Ball, and Pharaoh doesn't even run it all the time. It'll run it more now, I'm sure. But it doesn't really... Kyurem-White is still not really comfortable switching into Ferrothorn. The reason I pulled up a bunch of different replays was to illustrate the teams being used and how the Kyurem and Reshiram don't really come into them well at all. And it's kind of like Kyurem Black already has been for a while. Yes, it'll get a free turn once in a while, and it'll really do some stupid stuff like Outrage 2 KOing Jirachi. But then it kind of, I mean, here, you see it on the screen now. I mean, Tailwind, Outrage, and yeah, Draco, whatever. But, either Draco still goes to -2 special attack, and yeah, okay, Ice Beam is a lot more spammable, but in a metagame with Tyranitar and Ferrothorn and so many water types, and everything threatening it from every corner, I don't really see Kyurem-White being overwhelming. And another reason I wanted to mention this is not just because of its bad weaknesses, but because of its speed. Its speed is good, no doubt about that, 95 speed. But again, and yes, while I know Kyurem-White is better than Kyurem Black, but I also point to the fact that they are basically the same thing. in the sense that as great as Kyurem-Black's speed is, and as hard as it hits, it still has the same exact issues Kyurem-White would have. The only difference is that Kyurem-White would be better at, dishing out damage if allowed to switch in freely. But if you allow anything to switch in freely, then it's going to be a pain. When Kyurem-Black doesn't exactly switch in freely. And if anything, Kyurem-White would be at its worst now that, people are actually running Blissey. But, again, that's with 95 speed. And at base 90, Reshiram's even worse. Now, Reshiram doesn't have the same weaknesses. It's not weak to fighting, but it also doesn't really do well against... it has a ground weakness, for God's sake. It has, in addition to its Stealth Rock weakness, and its Dragon weakness. I mean, yes, it would hit very hard. It'd be great. I don't even know if it... I'm sure both of them will be good. Of course they would. But I'm not sure that they would be great. I think the metagame would still revolve around the same Pokemon it does now, i.e. Lando T, T-Tar, Alakazam, Latios, Keldeo, Ferrothorn, things of that nature. Sand teams, rain teams, hyper offense teams, and occasionally stall teams. So, I don't know. I just don't see... Here's another thing. The practicality of it is also steeped in the fact that you can say, oh, well, Kyurem-White does this, this, and this. And it's like, okay, well, build a team that is a good team that Kyurem-White fits well onto. And here's the trick, because this is functionally the same as Kyurem-Black, the defensive utility that it would provide. You say, oh, resist water, right? That's cool. Yeah, and beyond that, what is it really, really switching into well? And that's the thing, it doesn't. And when you have a Pokemon that doesn't switch into anything well, then you are going to want to make sure it does something concrete. Like, Magnezone isn't really a great switch into a lot of stuff, but, in terms of offensive threat, obviously. But it has the concrete benefit of removing Skarmory and Ferrothorn. So... in that sense, it is very much worth the team slot. Or Alakazam obviously doesn't switch into anything because of its Focus Sash, but it is the best at what it does, which is, revenge killing and cleaning up late game. So, other Pokemon, like even Keldeo, which you don't really think of as a defensive Pokemon because you shouldn't, but it also has pretty decent switching capability. Latios, obviously, half the reason it's so good on offense is because it's so good on defense. So... Lando T, Excadrill, it's the same thing. And these Pokemon are much easier to fit on a team, and all of them are also threatening Kyurem and Reshiram in some way. So, I haven't even mentioned Thunderous Therian getting a jump on them, and Focus Blasting Kyurem. And okay, yeah, Reshiram actually does kind of take its moves okay. Well, it doesn't take Focus Blast great, but it's getting absolutely shredded by hazards. Because Thun T has a... Stealth Rock weakness, sure, but it also does not take spikes damage, so big difference. And taking both is just, it's tough to reconcile all these weaknesses. So you gotta contend with the fact that you gotta support it, and it's not going to really do much for you in return beyond just, blasting the opponent. And sometimes just blasting the opponent is all you need from that slot, but it's going to be tough to make consistent teams with it, I think anyway. And the evidence I have for this is Kyurem-Black. And yeah, it'd be cool on Dragmag or whatever, but it's not going to fundamentally fix Dragmag's issues. Dragmag's issues are, well, I get totally destroyed by certain Pokemon, and just because I can hit a little bit harder doesn't really fix anything in that regard. Sure, it'll be nice to help it break through annoying defensive stuff. Don't people want that? More tools to break through balanced defensive teams? They're always talking about that. So, in that case, I think it'd be welcome. And I don't think it'd be overbearing. I don't think it really... yes, statistically, okay, Kyurem-White is hitting a lot harder, or so is Reshiram, also has great dual stab, all that. But, again, I don't know. I think it'd be cool to see Sun teams try to make use of them, but those teams already have so much issue with their synergy, and, Victini is faster than both of them. So, and Darmanitan is just as fast as Kyurem-White. So, obviously it's not the same thing, but if all you want is, nuclear power, then whatever kind of team you're slapping it on, then there is going to be something comparable, and you will also have that whole thing where something might not be as strong as Kyurem-White or Reshiram, but it also will get on the field more easily and will therefore do more damage by virtue of the greater opportunities it gets. So, I don't know, maybe I'm spectacularly wrong. all I know is that I was grabbing some replays for standard styles of teams that we've known for a while. So you've got like, I don't know, 5 of those ish. Yeah, so like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 replays of standard styles that were established, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 replays with Blissies being used, as well as more standard styles of team. So let's just look at them. Okay, Ruhr versus Dice. We've got a Sand offense team. Yeah, you want Kyurem-White or Reshiram against this? No, not at all. I mean, yes, it'll find an opportunity, somewhere, but so too could Kyurem-Black, and with the pace this operates at, I mean, the fact that T-Tar is everywhere is already naturally such a deterrent to them. Because, I mean, Reshiram, yeah, they focus blast. So does, Thunderous Therian. I would much rather have a Thunderous Therian, even on like a Sand team, because it's so much faster. So, I don't know, and it has the better typing as well. And even has like a Volt Switch immunity, my god. So, it actually has something in the way of, I don't want to say defensive utility, but, more than those others have. So, yeah, the Sand offense team is going to rip through it. And Dice's team, I mean, I really don't see how Kyurem-White is any better here than Kyurem-Black, because the biggest thing is that it's going to outspeed and threaten the sturdy Skarmory, because it's an offensive one, not a defensive one. So you're going to threaten to break through its sturdy with Fusion Flare, Ice Beam, or whatever. I mean, Banded Kyurem-Black already does that on Dragmag teams because it also has Terra Volt and Fusion Bolt. So it's going to Terra Volt and Fusion Bolt, in case I messed that up. Yeah, so the fact Kyurem-White can do that doesn't really change anything, or the fact that Reshiram can do that doesn't really change anything. And if anything, you might want Kyurem-Black here because if it's a Trick Room Reuniclus, but you would rather, in the event that it is a Calm Mind Reuniclus, then you want Banded Outrage, not Specs Draco Meteor or Ice Beam. So, but yeah, fundamentally it doesn't really make much of a difference against either of these, I don't think. I mean, yeah, the Kyurem-White might have an easier time getting a KO or something, but it's going to get Revenge Killed in the same way, and it struggles to switch in. Rotom's Volt Switching, Jirachi's U-turning, everything else crushes it. So, okay, so Watashi versus Jisu. So, Watashi's team, another standard Sand team, I mean, the exact same thing. Everything crushes these two. I mean, yeah, okay, I guess you could make a case for Scarf being okay. But, I mean, look, all I'm saying, Scarf Kyurem-Black is already okay. There's a reason it doesn't really get used much. And yes, they would hit hard and whatever, but their switching capability is so bad. Because getting rid of hazards in Gen 5 is just the absolute worst. And to hinge your Scarfer on such a, not just a Stealth Rock weak, but a Stealth Rock and Spikes weakness, like I can justify Scarf Gyarados, for example, or Scarf Thunderous Therian, because those just have the Stealth Rock weak, but being Rocks and Spikes weak, no thank you. So yeah, Jisu's team, now this one is a lot more threatened by both. I'm not sure about this team in general, because I also don't think it does very well against Heatran, like at all. Because Obama, Scizor, Jirachi get destroyed, Reuniclus isn't a switch-in, Tentacruel isn't a switch-in, and Gliscor just gets HP iced. So I guess if only Split F Heatrans are being used. So yeah, I don't know, I think Jirachi is already pretty much as good a counter as you're going to get in Ubers against Kyurem-White, so I don't really see much of a difference. And yeah, you can pair it with Rain. Well, you have to pair it with Rain and Ubers, so it doesn't really change anything here. And Hail is already, I don't know, it's still not going to be, I don't think you have to go, oh, what about Hail? Don't we want to preserve the playstyle? I think, if anything, I think Kyurem-White would be a benefit to Hail. I mean, those Blizzard off of that, I don't know, that'd be crazy. You actually get Lefty's recovery in Hail as opposed to Sand, or you don't get chipped. That's a major advantage. Kyurem-White, battering away at Steels with Ice Beams that are also getting chipped by Ice Beam, by Hail. So, I don't know, I think it would be, yeah, well, I'll stop myself from repeating myself. Okay, another standard Sand team, again, same thing. I mean, Kyurem-White and Reshiram do not do anything here. I mean, okay, yeah, Scarf or whatever, but that just makes it even easier for T-Tar to check them. And now we've got, do we have the Rain? No, that's not yet. And here we've got a Rain offense team, which, again, I mean, yeah, they're kind of annoyed by the Kyurem, but again, Kyurem-Black, same deal. Actually, there's a Jirachi on Rain. I mean, what more are you asking for? Thunderous Therian outspeeds, hits them hard, hazards, Latios. I mean, good lord, these are not going to be better dragons than Latios. And I don't necessarily subscribe to, if it's not the best Pokemon in the tier, then it, should be allowed. Because if it has a negative metagame impact, then of course it shouldn't. But I don't think it would have one. And yeah, and even like Tentacruel, I don't know. I think So these are more standard styles that wouldn't struggle. We already watched Fakes versus Elodin, but I mean, look at Fakes' team. It's not threatened like at all. It'll get a KO. Yeah, so too will Kyurem-Black, because what's going to happen when Kyurem-Black gets in on the Magna Zone or wherever, which is pretty much the only place it gets in safely, by the way. Or I guess against the T-Tar, and Kyurem-Black threatens T-Tar a lot harder than either Reshiram or Kyurem-White. And, then it clicks Outrage, and then, maybe 2 KOs Ferrothorn, or Magna Zone gets sacrificed, and yeah, and so Kyurem-White, what would it do? It would sacrifice something, but then the tempo of the team is such that with rocks and spikes that it's going to get, one switching opportunity. You shouldn't let it get more than one switching opportunity, same as with Kyurem-Black. Because, I mean, you take that same logic with Kyurem-Black. Okay, it outrages a couple times, and it 2 KOs Magna Zone or Ferrothorn, whatever, and then it's a 2-turn outrage, and it switches out when Latios comes in to try to revenge kill it. So what do you do? Do you just, die to the Kyurem-Black? No, you would be fine because of the pressure and the hazards and your whole game plan. Kyurem-Black is not an impediment to any decent Gen 5 OU team's game plan. Not in the same way that something like Thunderous or Keldeo or Latios or like Scarf Garchomp or Volcarona or whatever might be. Kyurem-Black is just that thing you might have to sacrifice something against, just like you might have to sacrifice something against a Specs Keldeo Hydro Pump in Rain. So, Elodin, again, Rain Jirachi and a team that hits both of these really hard. I mean, Reshiram gets, crushed by water. Yeah, it doesn't even have that water resist, so against Rain teams, I mean, yikes. And, yeah, I mean, even if... And then it's the same deal for Kyurem-White, so... Yeah, as funny as it would be to see both of them on the same team, but I mean, that's just such terrible synergy. So now we get into... Oh yeah, no, this is still standard-ish. So another... See, even here we have a slower sand balance team from Solwyn, because we got the double regenerator, the Gliscor alongside Terrakion and Excadrill, and it'd still be fine. I mean, it's... Again, I really don't see this as much different from Kyurem-Black, because, I mean, actually, Kyurem-Black is kind of scary here. Not the only steal is Excadrill and the physical walls, Slowbro, and maybe Gliscor. They don't want to switch into it. So yeah, Outrage is a lock and everything, but it's still not going to switch in easily. So dealing with Kyurem-Black here is going to be much the same as dealing with Kyurem-White, in that you have to limit its switch-ins and try to pivot around its moves. So, and Reshiram, I mean, same thing. But it doesn't switch in as nicely. So, yeah, this doesn't have spikes, but it doesn't have to. And Eevion's team, which is, I think it's still fine against it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that teams would remain identical. I mean, that'd be silly. Like when Latias was released into DPP, people would go, oh, well, now I have to edit my teams because there's a new Pokemon around. It's like, yeah, that's what happens when there's a new addition. I'm not saying that teams would remain identical, so maybe teams like this or Hail teams would have to adjust, but, I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing, and it's not like it would completely overturn the foundation of the metagame. You're just like, oh, I gotta adjust in case I... And would you really, though? Because, again, Kyurem-Black, you're not adjusting to beat Kyurem-Black with this team. It's gonna do fine. So... Yeah, now we get into the Blissey saga. So here on this side, we have another Rain team that does not really care about Kyurem-Black, and by extension does not really care about Kyurem-White. Nor would it really care about Reshiram, I mean, even less. And then on Solwyn's side, we have, Sand with a Blissey. And then here we have another Solwyn team with no weather and a Blissey. So, I mean, same thing. I guess Sun, Reshiram might, what's... Zekrom has Bolt Strike. What does Reshiram have? This is going to bother me if I don't figure it out. Whatever that move is. It's not Fusion Flare. It's the stronger one. Blue Flare. Yeah. So, Sun Reshiram, Blue Flare. I mean, if you're going to run Sun Reshiram, I mean, more power to you. Those are already tough to build. But, so yeah, I guess you would have to be careful about that. But I'm sure that you could make the same argument like that this team struggles against such and such and such and such. It's got Xatu as its sole anti-hazard prevention, and then a bunch of hazard-vulnerable Pokemon, and Clef to try and help out, but, who's to say? I think it's a fine team, by the way, but, to say that, oh, it invalidates this team, therefore it cannot be allowed, I don't think that's really fair. Also, invalidating certain things isn't necessarily a crack against something. If it's not broken, it's not broken, and if it doesn't mess up the metagame, it doesn't mess up the metagame. I mean, we allowed Latias, even though it pretty much completely killed Shaman's place in the tier. So, and then this team, the Sand Balance team, I mean, it's a little on the more vulnerable side to Kyurem and Reshiram, but again, it's also not really great against Kyurem Black. Now, if we want to just retroactively undo the tiering decision that allowed Kyurem Black and OU and send it back to Ubers, then I'm totally fine with that. But we're not going to do that, so I think we should go forth. Yeah, okay, here's another Sand team. I think ABR built this one with Blissey, so no problem. Facing Fakes with a bulky Sand team, which is basically, the same thing as that thing we just saw from Soulwind with the Regenerators and the Excadrill, and this one is a Lando over Terrakion, but functionally the same in terms of facing Kyurem and Reshiram. And finally we have, not finally, we have one more after this. We have a wacky, Blissey, balance / bulky offense team from DICE. So, I mean, this team is not scared of Kyurem-White or Reshiram at all. It's got Sand, T-Tar, and Terrakion, and a Blissey, and Excadrill, and yeah. And then we've got a Sun team from Evian, and in this game we actually see Specs, Eruption, Heatran doing the work. Does he Toxic again? Here he better. Why would he not talk? Whatever. So yeah, now Sun is up, and now he burns, and here comes T-Tar, Mola, trying to superpower the X-Guy on the switch. Okay, we don't really care. We just want to see Specs, Eruption, Heatran. Oh. When does the Heatran get to erupt? There's Nasty Plot. There's +4 Leaf Storm missing the Blissey. That's sad. And Wish to Heatran getting Sand up. God, I just want to see the Eruption. God. Well, you know what? Patience is a virtue. Nice use of a Alomomola here. Nice double the Tarak there. Cress. Yeah, as you can see, even this team with like Blissey and Slowbro and Zapdos wouldn't really be letting Reshiram in any easier than Kyurem or Reshiram. Isn't letting Heatran in any more easily. And Heatran has much more robust typing. That is a lot of wishes passed already. Oh, another burn miss. That sucks. Or another burn miss? Whatever. Oh, well, that T-Tar didn't get Scald Burn, so that's a burn miss of sorts. There's SD Exca. EQ'd trying to catch a pivot to something, I don't know, Trick Room. Skills, oh, that's actually hilarious. This video just took a detour into, yeah, and Cress even gets the lefties because it has Sand Force now. That's so cool. Yeah, this video took a little detour, but, I mean, it kind of illustrates the point. Oh, well, Sun, wouldn't that be too much? And I really don't think so. I think he should have thrown up a Wish just to... Well, he can still do it now. Actually, no, now he can switch, yeah. Well, I just pivoted Excadrill into, it pivoted Excadrill into an X-Scissor. You don't see that very much. I mean, I know he was going for Stone Edge, but still. Hilarious. And that quad-resisted, no, it's not quad-resisted, never mind, it's just regular resisted. I was going to say, there's no way unstab quad-resisted X-Scissor does 24 to Excadrill, even from a Choice Band Tarak. Spin. Can we just get the... Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a bad crit. Wow, a lot of luck in this game. Yeah, but now we see Eruption, Specs, Heatran, and it obliterates Zapdos hilariously, of course, but that's it. Because now Terrakion is in and Sand is going to be up, and now it's not going to be able to... I mean, okay, it still erupts on the Blissey in Trick Room and 2 KOs it. Cool. But this is a Pokemon that is not losing its health in Sand. So, yeah, not a trait that neither Kyurem-White nor Reshiram can boast. And Heatran will be similarly threatening if Sun was maintained. So, yeah, it survives that superpower, and then Specs Earth powers it in Dust, which is cool and all. But, yeah. Now this game is... Oh, he might come back with this Nasty Plot. Celebi. Oh, never mind. Paraflinch, Leaf Storm miss. What a game. Anyway. So, yeah, I don't think it would be a problem there. And now we see Blissey, Hail. So, against another very, like, the most, well, there's no Magic Guard Pokemon there, which is unusual. Or it's throwing me off. I was like, why is this team so blue? You know, you got the Gliscor, Latios, Bronzong, Jellicent. It feels like we're missing, some colors there. We need the Zams and the Reunicluses. But... And to make it more color-coded, then Gliscor should have been next to Latios. But yeah, this is also, with its hazard-heavy approach and T-Tar and Latios and Bronzong, especially defensive steel, then, again, I don't really see it as any more threatening. And with Ruhr, then same deal. If anything, again, Ruhr's team is a lot more scared of Kyurem Black. So, whereas for this other team, it's the same thing. So I think I've said pretty much everything I want to say. I don't think that they would be broken. I think they're worth testing in some form. But I understand why people might not want to. But yeah, it's not just who cares, let things explode. I really would genuinely be interested to see what it would do, because I really don't think that they would have that much impact. I think it'd be, another big wall breaker, a la Hydreigon or whatever, or a la Kyurem Black. And then the metagame will continue on its usual path. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.